Hello everyone, I am Shivani and welcome to vakilaw. So I've been discussing about the subject of intellectual property rights. So in all my previous videos, I have discussed about the meaning and definition of intellectual property, its characteristics, its role, importance, significance, growth, and at the same time we've also taken a look at the intellectual property laws or even the Indian scenario or what is the Indian legal structure for promotion and protection of IPR, and also about the authorities which govern or are in charge of the intellectual property rights. Okay, so this is all that we've discussed in detail in my previous video. I have shared links of all those videos in the description box, so you can take a look at them. For those who have already taken a look at them, you can watch them again, and for newcomers, please do watch those videos also. So in my this video, I'll be taking an overall revision of whatever I have discussed in my previous videos. Now for those who are just interested to understand intellectual property rights as a subject, you must have understood what what is the concept or what is the scope of the subject. But for law students, now we need to focus of how we have to study this subject and what we have to write in the exams when answering the questions in the exam. Okay, so I'll be discussing in short point wise. Now understand, in my study tip also I had told you that you have to memorize or even understand the concepts point wise, so that you are very much clear in your mind about what is required or what you want to write in the paper or what is expected to be written in the paper. So may it be a definition, may it be growth, scope or anything, may the question be asked in any form, but you have to be very clear about the concepts. And so if you memorize them or if you prepare yourself point wise, it will certainly help you to write a flawless answers, and at the same time it will help you to write logical answers, because I have seen that many a times students get the problem that you get a mark of irrelevant on the answer sheet. So what is irrelevant? You don't get it all the time. So if you listen to my lecture right now carefully and if you understand all the concepts point wise, I'm sure that certainly you will be able to write good answers and gain good marks in your papers. Okay, so let's begin now. So basically what was the introduction that I gave you. Okay, so if you get any kind of question, the very first part that you are required to write is the introduction. So what is the introduction? So we basically said that intellectual property right is something that is gaining immense importance these days, or it is the need of the hour, or even we said that we are getting exposed to various kinds of talent based platforms where intellectual property rights play a key role. You can see that in my first video where I have discussed about this. So understand that in the very first point we are going to introduce to the concept of intellectual property rights. So first we are going to write that it is the need of the hour, and so this subject plays a very vital role in this changing world. Now what comes next? So we've also discussed about the forms of IPR or we basically understood the forms of intellectual property rights was a part which we saw in the later part. So what were they? So it can be in the form of research, logo, drawing or painting, musical composition, books, software, mathematical formula. So I've discussed about it. So you can write something about that also, that these are the forms of intellectual property rights. I also drew your attention to a very important part which stated that any forms or what we call as products or types of intellectual property should be one which is a creation of the human mind. So this is what is the highlight of the subject. So anything which is creation of the human mind. So the very first point after introduction would be that intellectual property, may it be of any type or any form, is something which is a creation of the human mind. Now moving forward, we went to the next part, which was meaning and definition of intellectual property. So very first time we spoke about a simple dictionary meaning. So in the answer you can write that we have a simple dictionary meaning relating to intellectual property which reads that it is an intangible property that is a result of creativity such as patents, copyrights, etc. Then later, to elaborate this definition, what can you do? Draw the important words or keywords, what we say as keywords of the definition to elaborate it, so that the examiner or the person who is checking your paper understands that you've understood the concept really well. So as I said, so what was the dictionary meaning? An intangible property that is a result of creativity, such as patents, copyrights, etc. Now let me give an example. How can you draw keywords of these? So the very first keyword is, it is an intangible property. Second point is, such property is a result of creativity, that is an invention of the human mind. Okay, so these are the points. So how can you memorize the definition? First is, it's an intangible property, and second one is, such property is a result of creativity. And what is this creativity? It is nothing but an invention of the human mind. That's it. You're all set with your definition. This is a simple dictionary meaning. So, you can differentiate these, you can put them point wise and then memorize it, so that these keywords help you to write the definitions in sentences properly. Okay. So later on I also discussed about some other definitions. Okay. So what was one of the definition read as, creations of the mind, inventions, literary and artistic works and symbols, names and images and used in commerce is what is intellectual property. So here also the keywords are creations of the mind, what form, inventions, literary and artistic works and symbols, names and images. And where can they be used? They can be used in commerce. The second definition is, the protection of creations of the mind which have both moral and commercial value. So what are the keywords of this definition? So it is basically a protection. Protection of what? Creations of the mind. Now we know creation of mind is nothing but an invention of the human mind. What does that have? It has both moral as well as commercial value. So draw these keywords, memorize them. You can write them in a book, and a day before the exam, just mug up with those keywords, and I'm sure that you can certainly write these answers. This is my guarantee. Okay. So later we discussed what that was the most important part. Now this would frame as the most important part of your definition or any kind of answer. What is that? IPR is an intangible property. So everywhere we've written intangible property, intangible property. So you have to write what is the meaning of intangible property. So it is that which cannot be seen, heard, touched or felt by the human body, but which exists in real. So that's it. There you can end it. Okay. So what you have to write down next is that IPR is possessed by the exclusive owner of the property. So it is in possession of the exclusive owner of the property. Against whom? So against the whole world. So no other person other than the exclusive owner is entitled to use that property. Okay. So how? That no one can copy or it can imitate or use the property without the permission of the exclusive owner. Here, without the permission of the exclusive owner is the main soul of the concept of intellectual property rights. So this is the base where the entire pyramid of intellectual property rights stands. So understand, and you have to also highlight this point. So remember, any concept of intellectual property right, you have to remember that anything you can't use, imitate or even copy anything which is owned by some other person exclusively without his permission. Okay. So we understood that. Then we later on discussed about what are intellectual property laws. So they are laws which are related to intellectual property. Now this is a very well known fact. Then what does it do? So it provides an exclusive right to the owner of such property. Okay. So how it can be used? So it can be used at his own wish or own desire. And it also at the same time, it also prevents others from using such property without prior permission of the exclusive owner. I told you about it right now. Okay. So further you can write that intellectual property right is an intangible right which is exercisable in respect of tangible work. So we wrote that which cannot be heard, seen or touched. That is, the right is intangible, but the property against which such right is exercised is tangible. That is, which can be heard, felt or touched by the human body. Okay. Then later on we've taken a look at the characteristics of IPR. So basically it's a creation of the human mind. It is an intangible right over a tangible work. At the same time, it is assignable and transferable. Why? Because intellectual property rights are considered to be movable property. So intellectual property is a movable property, hence it can be assigned to any person or even can be transferred to any other person at the will and wish of the exclusive owner. So the rights which are possessed by the owner of the intellectual property are exclusive and absolute. Now these two words are very much important, so underline them in your books, that these rights are exclusive and at the same time absolute. So there is no other person who can share that right. The original owner or the exclusive owner is the sole owner of the use of that intellectual property. And the most important point is that the nature of IPR or intellectual property rights is that of legal rights. So these rights are legal in nature. Now what is legal rights? Is that they exist only under law. So intellectual property rights are legal rights and they exist only under law. So the next part which we dealt with was the growth, scope and role of intellectual property rights. So here we discussed what are the reasons which compel us to promote and protect the intellectual property rights. So I have made a detailed video where I have made a descriptive elaboration of the reasons. You can visit that video, the link of which I have shared in the description box. Here I'll just be discussing the head points of the reasons which compel us to promote and protect the intellectual property rights. So the very first reason is progress. The second reason is intellectual property rights encourages innovation. The third point is that intellectual property right spurs the promotion and protection of economic growth, and also it creates new job opportunities, and it also has a potential as a catalyst or a stimulator for economic development. Okay, so these points will enhance your answers, and if you check my videos you will also find a description to it which will help you for better study and also will help you write those points in your exam papers. Okay, so next part that we discussed was what is the Indian scenario or how India deals with the concept of intellectual property rights. Now this is the most common question that can be asked for long question also and for short question also. So you have to prepare for both long and short answers. Okay, so first we'll write the meaning and definition, and later we'll write that intellectual property rights is a general term. It's not a specific term, it's a general term which includes many categories like patents, copyrights, trademarks, industrial designs, geographical indications, layout design of an integrated circuit, undisclosed information or trade secrets, and new plant varieties. Okay, now what is actually the situation in India, or what is the Indian scenario, or how India deals with the concept of IPR, its promotion and protection. So we are fortunate that we have a strong legal structure and laws relating to promotion and protection of IPR. Now what are those laws? So basically we have categorized them into two parts. The first part is for literary and artistic works, and second one is for industrial property. So what does literary and artistic works contain? So basically it contains copyright, and what is done by the Indian government to promote and protect copyright. So provisions have been formulated under the Indian Copyright Act of 1957. So the Indian Copyright Act of 1957 is the law which governs the copyright in India. Okay, so second one is what is done for promotion and protection of industrial property in India. So for trademarks, it's the Trademarks Act of 1999. Patents is governed by Patents Act of 1970. Designs is covered by the Designs Act of 2000. Plant varieties is covered by the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act of 2001. And geographical indications is protected under the Geographical Indication of Goods Registration and Protection Act of 1999. And the last part which we dealt with was what are the administrative authorities which govern the intellectual property rights in India. So now we understood that there are a number of categories. So each category is governed by a particular authority in India which governs and keeps a look on that particular type of intellectual property. Okay, so basically patents, designs, trademarks and geographical indications are governed by Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks. Copyright is governed by the Ministry of Human Resource Department or HRD. Layout designs of integrated circuits fall under the charge of the Ministry of Telecommunication and Information Technology or IT, and the protection of plant varieties is governed by the Ministry of Agriculture. Now coming to the conclusion, we can say that intellectual property and its protection is the need of the hour. It plays a vital role in the economic development of the country. The main purpose of intellectual property right is to provide an exclusive right to the owner of the property for his creation against misuse of his creation by any other person or use of his creation without his permission, that is, protecting his exclusive right of use of his creation in the manner he wants, which will boost one's morale and create enthusiasm for exploring new talent, creativity and invention. We are enough fortunate that Indian laws do provide for protection of IPR and also provide strict punishments for infringement of the same. So now I think you all are well acquainted with the concept of IPR, its characteristics, growth, scope and everything. I have also given a brief review of how can you write your answers and how can you enhance them and how to conclude an answer. So I hope this video is helpful for you. In the upcoming videos, I'll be discussing about new topics relating to the subject of intellectual property rights. So stay tuned. Till then, this is me, Shivani, signing off. Come back to vakilaw. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, please like my videos and do let me know in the comments box if you have any query. I'll try to resolve it. So till then, bye-bye.